All right, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Kara, and I'm with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us on this day. We have a real special treat going on here. We have AJ Bustamante and Abe Noya. AJ is with Northwest Computer Solutions, and Abe is with Team Nebula AI. And we're excited to learn some new things and really get educated on this quickly changing landscape. So,
Mm.
guys, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Kara, for that introduction. Again, shout out to the Washington County Chamber of Commerce for opening up the Small Business Solution series for us to share on all the things IT and AI in action. To your point, it's an ever-changing landscape of technology, and so we're here to present a crash course on these things. And so I want to introduce you to our host for today, Tamsin Dean with Heister Yale. She's going to be supporting Abe and I as we go through this presentation today. Tamsin.
Hello. It's good to see you guys. Thank you for joining the meeting. Yeah, I guess without further ado, should I share
Go
my
ahead and share the
screen, get us
screen
started?
and get us started. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Share. All right.
Perfect.
Let me know if you guys can see this.
Yes, I can see
Okay,
it.
awesome. All right. Yes. So hello, I'm Tamsin, and I'm one of the more recent additions to the team. We are all part of the AIC or the AI Collective here in Portland. And yeah, I am a software engineer at Heiser Yale, and I specialize mostly in full stack development. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves, or I guess you'll do that like later on. But
Well, I don't
yeah.
mind going again. AJ Bustamante, Director Sales and Marketing with Northwest Computer Solutions, your managed IT department for 24/7 support, but also partner manager with the AI Collective, as Tamsin, you were sharing. Thank you for that. And my role is really the bridge between IT and cybersecurity before we get to the AI section that Abraham will be sharing. And so that's my focus for me. Again, AJ Bustamante, Northwest Computer Solutions.
AJ, you have to have practiced that at least 100 times. That was amazing. My name is Abraham Noya. I am COO and co-founder at Team Nebula, and I am also the chapter lead for the Portland AI Collective.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll kick us off with kind of our mission statement. So, yeah, as the AI landscape evolves at this, extremely fast rate, it can be daunting to just think about how us humans can keep up. So, us at the AI Collective, we kind of aim to address this concern by creating open and welcoming spaces for anyone who, wants to exchange ideas, learn, connect, and build relationships around AI. And just, yeah, we want to be the human layer and focus on what we can do. All right, our community. So we are rapidly expanding. The collective spans globally and is made up of people from all sorts of cool, diverse backgrounds and industries. So we've got founders, developers, students, and just like anyone who is curious about dabbling or tinkering with AI. And yeah, I think a lot of people do feel intimidated by AI right now, just because we feel like, we're late to the game or not technical enough to participate. But our goal is just to kind of lower that barrier of entry and, yeah, make AI a bit more accessible and connecting. Cool. So here's just sort of our three key principles that we follow. So cultivating community. This is just like engaging and connecting with people,
I
elevating the
am so
conversation.
sorry to interrupt. We are actually only seeing the first slide still.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, is it not
No
sharing?
worries.
Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know why it's doing that.
Well, and just to that point, the AI Collective, our mission is to be that human layer of AI, because it takes actual intelligence to even participate with the artificial. And so, as Tamsin figures out the slide there, I just kind of want to make that note because I think it's important to remember that, we're people using this stuff, everybody. And so, Abe and I and Tamsin will nerd out with the best of them on the tech, but at the end of the day, it is people using this stuff, and we like to keep that at the forefront with the AI Collective.
Awesome. Okay, can you guys see the AIC mission slide right now?
No, but fortunately, if it's all right with you, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, if that's okay,
Yes,
to
please go
help with
ahead.
that.
I'm
Would
so
that be
sorry.
okay? Don't you worry
Yeah.
about it. It happens all the time on the regular. So I'm going to go ahead and play my slide from the AI Collective mission. Sam, there we go. And then feel free to take us away again, Tamsin.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so our mission, um, yeah, is just to be the human layer. Okay, I guess if you want to go to, I think it's the next one, community. Yes, talked about us expanding. I think next one. Okay, yes. So sorry about that. So cultivating community, just engaging and connecting with people, we want to build that trust first. I think that's like the foundation of those relationships. Elevating the conversation. So we want our conversations about AI to be more nuanced, looking towards the future instead of what we read online, which is very much like polarizing and reactive. And then third, harnessing collective wisdom. We do this by bringing a bunch of people together who have different experiences and perspectives. And yeah, just using all of those different opinions just to, yeah, make decisions. And yeah. All right. I think we're ready for the next one. Cool. Okay, so we are very proud to say that the Portland chapter has been one of the fastest growing chapters among all of AIC. We recently hosted a Claude hackathon. There'll be a lot more to come as well. And yeah, organized multiple AI focused events just within the past month. So looking ahead, our goal is to scale to roughly one event per week. Yeah, and just really collaborate more with our local partnerships. Um, Eventually expand into multiple chapters. In my opinion, I think Portland is up and coming in tech. We have a really strong mix of creativity, engineering talent, and just like a community minded culture. So, this is a great place for the AIC to thrive. Cool. But yeah, I think I'm going to pass it over to AJ and let him introduce himself now.
That would be me. And again, thank you so much, Tamsin, for helping support. And I want you all to know she's one of our young up and comers in the AIC, just with her full tech stack background. There's just nothing like knowing people that, for starters, are cool to hang out with, kind of like how we met, Tamsin, but also have the tech acumen to have these kinds of conversations. So, as she grows into this role as partner manager. Again, just appreciate you sharing, Tamsin. But now, as we kind of transition a little bit over to my segment, again, AJ Bustamante, Northwest Computer Solutions, managed IT department. I'm going to talk a little bit, about us. Why do our clients choose Northwest Computer Solutions or an MSP, also known as a managed service provider? How do we develop our solutions? Because again, we need IT to even participate with AI. And if we don't have the proper cybersecurity, we probably shouldn't participate because that's where the risk can increase. But fortunately for us, we have AI gurus like Abraham that will be sharing shortly after my segment here on how we can do so to generate revenue in business. And so. A little bit about Northwest Computer Solutions, founded in 1990, been one of the local leaders in managed IT services for, roughly 36 years with over 200 clients nationwide, netting over $1 million plus in revenue and, powered by a $400 million support team called the 20 which I think is important because, it's the kind of thing that you really only build up over time. And as we think as business owners and put that hat on, our goal is to scale up. And so, been fortunate to partner with my friend and mentor, James Hansen, who actually founded Northwest Computer Solutions many years ago. And so, why do our clients go with an MSP or a managed service provider like Northwest Computer Solutions? I can't speak for a lot of the other folks, but what I can say for us is it's the proven track record of success, right? So I'm going to speak from that vantage point as we go through these slides today. Strong encouragement to check out some of our clients here that, started just where you folks are, literally just moving from the garage to their first location. But now, they've just had conversations with, mergers and acquisitions and are probably going to be on the beaches of the world any moment now, which I think is the goal for all of us that go into entrepreneurship, having that exit plan in mind too. And so that proven track record of success in helping clients to get to that point and scaling up is why our clients choose us. It's really just the years of experience creating operational maturity, right? We pride ourselves on operational excellence because efficiency brings so many desired results that when you have a streamlined process that works at a certain level of efficiency, we can scale up to get these small to mid companies to where they want to be. I will tell you that, us personally, the flat rate service is extremely affordable, but it's just nice to have the predictability of the finances. And so that's something that our clients like about us as well, because as we transition to this next slide, that's actually very difficult with a lot of traditional break fix IT companies. It's right there in the title. We need something to break in order to call someone to fix it. But sometimes, similar to an auto mechanic, you got to crack the thing open in order to see what's going on. And so that predictability becomes an illusion because you just don't really know till you get into it. And then, towards the end of it, you start to see some of the, extra fees here stacking up with all these different things that can add on to the bill. And so, in a lot of cases, it makes it kind of confusing, anxious feelings can come to mind too, because nobody really likes to get blindsided with cost. And so, that right there is because the goals. Oftentimes the time put into the project has a billable hour that's attached by a wage and billable rate that increases that, you get charged for, right? And so it's misaligned from the get-go because we always need that next project, or they always need that next project in order to, I would just say justify the existence is a good way to put it. And so what we try to do is we believe in the MID model, managed IT department model. And our goal is to prevent problems. What a concept. Because we can prevent problems and increase the IT uptime in a lot of cases, or at the very least, just prevent any downtime at that affordable rate. So that way we could just focus on the business and scale up, right? What a concept. We just own it in that way with our model. So that's, again, just the vantage point that I try to speak from because, we're just in a world today where the concept of AI is really, a double-edged sword. There are some risks that come along with AI, but as an AI enthusiast and developer, I do believe there's a safe way to implement these things if we just do things right on the front end. I know there's all kinds of cybersecurity stories with breaches and I would just say that who doesn't know of someone that had a spoof email go out that was obviously a scam, right? I mean, I got two alone yesterday from some friends, and now they got to go around telling everybody about it because it's mandated, and now we're losing trust from our clients, and i.e., losing revenue, and that's because we're being targeted. 70% of the ransomware attacks today are directed towards smaller companies with 500 employees or less. And unfortunately, if we don't have a managed IT provider, they are winning 80 to 90% of the time. And in the case of a breach like these two folks yesterday, unfortunately, may have to go through here soon. The average downtime can be roughly 22 days, right? That can equate to 5,600 bucks a minute. And I don't think there is a business out there that could really afford that cost. And so, for us, we just try to focus on mitigating risk. I would say that Nike, gosh, I love Nike. I almost don't even want to share this, but Nike is a great example, right? Because, if you look just recently, there was a data breach that led to a loss of $100 million. And, right here in, on Oregon Live, you can just Google this, but, basically the plaintiff was saying, well, now my information is the hand of cybersecurity criminals. And it's one of those things where you could even have all the right tech and all the right things, but even then, like it can happen. Yeah, it can happen, and not all of us can afford that lawsuit too. Fortunately, Nike's done very well, but 60% of the time businesses go out of business and bankrupt around 6 months later. Right. And that if you take it a step further, I actually know some people that work at Nike, their team got downsized, and that's the ramifications. It's not the spoof email, but if you drill it down, it's the cost and the loss that comes from those things. There were many of these people. I'm gonna say half of the team that my friend was on was downsized. But I just wonder sometimes, like, how did that affect their housing? How did that affect their family? And so it goes much deeper than just tech, you guys, because again, it's people using these things. And so I love technology. I love nerding out about it. These are not my favorite topics to have, but it's very real. I would say though, relax though. Relax. We got it covered. We handle an average of 5 to 6 data breaches a month, I would say. And we have the support team to do it again. We can mitigate those challenges usually within a week or two. Pretty quick process, and our retention rates are off the charts. And so a little bit of doom and gloom. I wouldn't say sky's falling because we deal with it every day, but just I think that if we work this hard to build the business, we have got to take the time to protect it for those in business that, maybe don't always have the time to research the technology. And so they could use the help the most. Or maybe we're at a size where we have an internal IT professional and maybe they just need help, right? So they understand the tech, but they need a support team where, us bringing in a managed IT department can be very advantageous. And usually in times of transition, right? Maybe a startup, new location, new employee. Hopefully, we're doing our annual reviews on the business, technology being a piece of that. And that's usually a good time to come in. But I will tell you that, all industries have their compliance regulations. And so um, everybody needs the due diligence of the cybersecurity. So I'm just going to kind of get off that for now and talk a little bit about a segment that I call all of the things, right? These are the core technologies that we use to build a business. I mean, try to take any one of these away and, see what happens. And so I'm just going to kind of break it down step by step. Again, this is a crash course. I'll do my best to keep it lively, but sometimes the tech talk can be a little bit. Ugh. But I will just start with the internet. And the reason I'm going to start with the internet is because that's the data that we're all using for dollars. I mean, essentially, these are digital assets that we're using to grow the company. And so that's where the data is coming from. So I would say the lifeblood of the business, right, goes through data. And so, we act as brokers. So we see all the different pricing for all the different ISPs or internet service providers. And so it's all based off the location and the address that you move into. So, step one would just kind of be to see like who's in the area, either calling around yourself, shopping it out. You can always talk to a broker like myself to make that process easier. But you don't want to build a business over a dead zone. So at least checking into the connectivity prior to moving in can be advantageous. But once we have the data and that lifeblood flowing through the business, that's where we really want to start protecting our IT infrastructure. You see this gap of the data and the internet coming through to all the devices, computers, tablets, cell phones. And so we want to be securing that data as it comes in with things like a firewall. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the cybersecurity aspect in a bit here, because again, these are all the things we need for the business to participate with AI, but we want to secure it before we start participating. So I'll just move on to the computer or the laptop, right? The computer, it's essential because that's where we do all of our work from. Our workstation is another terminology for it for us in the industry. And so, getting yourself the right computer. Us as brokers, we'll go get the computer, fit it to the specs, to the need of our clients. So that way it just shows up and works, right? And so I'm a huge advocate of that. Or you can always shop around Amazon, Costco, make sure that you have the right specs to support your business. But, that data comes in somewhere, and the computer and workstations what allows us to utilize the data. Then we want to get our email, which I have Microsoft 365 in there with Copilot is one of my favorite AI tools for sure, because it's just embedded in everything you do, in the email, the calendar, even this slide that I'm putting together as Copilot embedded in it. And so I'm a huge advocate of Microsoft 365 with Copilot. But the favorite reasoning behind that actually is because it's enterprise grade cybersecurity. And so, we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from those cyber threats on the regular. So when we're using AI, Microsoft 365 does a really good job of securing the environment. And so, huge advocate of Microsoft 365. The backing up of your data. Oh my gosh, could not stress this enough because you just don't know. You just don't know when something's going to happen. So if we don't have a place to place that data in the event that maybe you lose a laptop, phone breaks, or we do have a data breach. We have to have a place to store that data so that we can restore in the event that something happens. And so, for us, we like to migrate that stuff to the cloud, right? We could do it on site, but we like to do both, where it's on site and in the cloud. And that's really a part of our recovery plan that we put together at Northwest Computer Solutions, because these folks that have this inevitable data breach remediation plan coming, because again, they got the spoof emails yesterday. They're going to have a place to put that data so they can clean out the infrastructure and then put it back on the devices. And so that's what just a brief snapshot of what a recovery plan might look like. But again, I would say this left side is like your IT infrastructure. There's things like a phone that might come after, but some people just use their personal cells for a little bit. Not my recommendation, but a lot of it's determined by whatever budgets we have in place. And so right here we have our business phone system, so that now we can start reaching out to our people through a customer relationship management software, which we help our clients implement. That database, we can't track it all on paper these days, and long gone are the days of Excel. It can be so cumbersome using Excel. And so using a CRM in order to store your data so that you can reach out to your people, I think is just absolutely essential. And there's so many free ways to do that, as well as some that have a nominal fee to automate things too, to make it easier to run those email campaigns like the ones that you all probably got from me leading up to this meeting. But and then we get to the end where we have our website. We definitely want to start marketing for clients, and so tying the domain to the email, extremely important as well. And it's just a good look too. The Gmail email. It's good for a start. I have like 10 Gmail emails, but when it comes to business, connecting the domain and securing the environment, kind of the name of the game. And so that was a lot. Oh my gosh. Are you still with me? I feel like I need a drink of water or something like that, because that was just a lot. But is this stuff making sense to everybody? Yeah? Am I explaining that okay? Hmm? Okay. Good. Because now is that part where we start to deep dive a little bit more into the cybersecurity aspect before we hand it off over to Mr. Noya. And I will just tell you ahead of time that it doesn't always feel good to hear some of this stuff, but I do think it's important to overcome some of the anxiousness to just learn like what can we do about it. It's no secret, cyber threats are at an all-time high today. There are things out there like phishing as a service. They have their AI agents as well. So I consider myself to be like the Jedi of the IT world versus them, the Sith, that are coming in trying to take over. But we're going to dive a little bit deeper into cybersecurity here and talk about risk management and cybersecurity risks, cybersecurity compliance, and then some key takeaways on some cybersecurity essentials. Okay. Starting with, gosh, and I will just tell you, this is a long list. So I'm not going to go through all the slides with the list just for the sake of time, because I'm starting to come up on my time soon here. And I want to be respectful to A, but I'm just going to go through at least this first slide because, phishing and spearing attacks, I mean, we know about these fraudulent emails or messages. They are designed to trick staff into revealing sensitive information and credentials. And it's a huge risk because oftentimes we're giving them permission into our infrastructure. And that's where, these emails that I was referencing earlier came from. I mean, these two people, they actually know each other. And then both of the same emails came to me. And so one of those folks was convinced to click the link, right? And they're just getting really good at these phishing attempts. And so, strong encouragement to when I got it, I just phoned a friend. I took a screenshot, I texted over them. I was like, "Hey, is this you?" And they're like, "Nope." And I was like, "We need to talk about your cybersecurity because you've been hacked, brother." And so, phishing. I'm just going to kind of start there because usually they take it a step further with ransomware. It's like now we have the information, so now we're gonna, ransom this information and ask, you, the local business owner, for X amount of dollars. And so, unfortunately, I've had it come across my desk where my or my insurance profession partners would come to me and ask if there's anything I can do after the fact. And the answer is, well, I can clean it up, but if you didn't have the proper stuff ahead of time, the answer is well, no, right? And then hopefully you just don't become one of those 60% that go bankrupt later. But data breaches from third-party vendors. These are breaches occurring at external service providers like a cloud service, storage, maybe e-discovery platforms, things like that. And it's a risk because outsourced services often involve sharing sensitive client data, creating an additional attack surface. And so data breaches from third-party vendors. We work with these vendors, and so you just hope that they have the proper cybersecurity, or it just kind of spreads, kind of like COVID during the pandemic, right? Insider threats, employees or contractors who are intentionally or unintentionally compromising security. Again, cybersecurity awareness training is huge because we have to know what to look for in a lot of cases. I keep referencing these emails I received yesterday because dang it, they did a good job. And when I saw that email signature, it was legit. Those hyperlinks went direct to my friends' websites and everything. And but again, it was just one of those things where I just know better. But that's because I've been trained as a cybersecurity pro, and so cybersecurity awareness training is huge when it comes to employees, when it comes to contractors, because those insider threats, people let the cyber threats inside if they're not up to speed on the proper training. And then weak passwords. This is probably the last one that I'll really cover in depth this way because I put all these slides together and I was like, man, I forgot how much risk is coming. And again, I don't necessarily want to scare anybody or drain all the time in the meeting. And so I'll just kind of end here with the weak passwords and credentials because I think we're all guilty with using the same password for like every website, for like every account that we ever had ever. And strong encouragement, enterprise grade password management. I know some of these browsers actually offer that for free. It's better than nothing. Of course, getting one through a managed IT provider like myself is usually the best way, but just not having those easy guessable passwords. Because the phishing and malware, they're smart. Like if I showed you what's called a dark web monitoring report that I use with all my clients. It'll show you all the different email addresses and all the different passwords that they found because that domain was on the dark web. And so just strong encouragement. If you're using all the same passwords on the same accounts, maybe look into a password manager to help with that. But again, just per my promise to you and the rest of my team here, I'm just going to click through a couple more slides and start to read them off because, yes, we have unsecured mobile devices, public Wi-Fi network vulnerabilities. We already covered email spoofing and business email compromises, but there's also unsecured cloud storage, right? Because it's going from the device into the cloud, and so we want to secure it prior to it going up there. Malicious AI tools, which we're going to be talking about an amazing tool after I'm done here in a moment through Abe. But there are malicious AI tools out there that, again, go on the dark side of what Abe's going to show. And so we just want to be prepared for that, aware for that, and have the proper protection for that because of the generative AI risks of today through things like social engineering hacks. There's a lack of multi-factor authentication. And I know it's frustrating to have to, do the Face ID or the passcode just to log into, look at a menu for a restaurant. But that's just where we are today, and it's all for our protection. E-discovery risk, kind of covered that earlier. Cyber attacks targeting high-profile cases, inadequate backup and recovery plans going back to that necessity of today. Again, your cyber liability insurance, mandates a lot of these things through the underwriting process, which we'll get into in a moment here. Mismanagement of client communications. I'm not going to go too deep into that because I don't want to shed any negative light on anybody, but lack of cybersecurity awareness training, which we talked about earlier. And just the list goes on and on. But I would just say, best practices when it comes to compliance is encryption, right? Encrypt your sensitive communication and files. Limit access controls on kind of a need to know basis. It is nice to have certain departments that have certain access to certain things at the appropriate time. I kind of touched a little bit on cyber liability insurance. Have a good policy. We usually recommend about 1 million because, as you saw on the slide prior, Nike, they can afford those types of lawsuits. But we want to be one of the smaller mid-sized companies that doesn't necessarily have to go through that process, but in the event that we do, at least recoup the funds through our cyber liability insurance. Regular training with the employees to recognize those things. Prevention is really always the way, you all. It's going to yield a higher profit to prevent a problem than putting the fire out. And so, strong encouragement to just, again, awareness, train. I can certainly help with some of that for those of you that know me that are on the call. But then the audits, periodically review your cybersecurity policies and procedures. Oh my gosh. Again, hopefully we're doing the annual reviews. I would say at the latest, I'm more of a quarterly type of guy. I do a lot of quarterly business reviews with my clients because the landscape changes so fast. AI governance is a hot topic today, which is kind of difficult to implement because the landscape is changing so fast. Every week or two, something's different. So how do you really put a framework around that? And so, with it changing, I like to change with it by just having regular reviews on these policies and procedures. Because again, compliance, that compliance regulation, it is no singular thing. We have some statewide governed things, but really a lot of it is, industry specific. So in the case of the accounting industry, we have the IRS P5708, which talks about a written information security plan or a WISP. What are we going to do in the event of, right? Healthcare has HIPAA compliance as well in regards to how are we actually managing the data and are we doing it in a safe way. The legal industry has the American Bar Association as well as the Oregon Bar Association talking about competency and then confidentiality because that's kind of common knowledge these days where attorney client privileges are extended. But if we're doing things like leveraging AI and it's immediately going through like a Gemini making it public, well, now we've just breached that contract in the world of legal industry. And so there's things put in place to help prevent that sort of thing, ideally. But the PCI compliance, we all would seem to. I'm not going to say we all because I actually came up with some folks that are still accepting some checks now that I think about it. So I'm not going to say all, but I think the majority of us are accepting digital payment. So the payment card industry, which is what PCI stands for, has their compliance regulations on how we accept digital payments. And so, these are things that, again, associated with fines and fees if we're not going about it in the proper way. But where it really hits home is in the event of something actually happening. And now, this is, compliance regulation is tied to the data breach. So ideally, we would be doing this prior to, getting the business in a position to scale, right? I would say at the startup phase, I know sometimes budgets are tight. If there's anything we want to go cheap on, I do not think cybersecurity is it though, at all, especially in the days of today. Cyber liability insurance, going back to that a little bit more, these are some of the security controls during the underwriting process on whether or not you can file a claim. And I mentioned some of them earlier. I'm just going to mention a few because, again, these are mandated in order to get the claim itself, or you might get a policy, and in the event of a breach, now you're reaching out to your insurance agent, and unfortunately, they will probably deny the claim because these are the things that we should have had before writing the policy. Things like multi-factor authentication, endpoint detection and response, securing and those encrypted backups, cyber incidents response, right? That WISP, there's that training again. All the stuff I kind of touched on earlier is really a part of the type of cybersecurity solution that we want to be developing internally within our organization. And this is how we actually build our solutions, guys. We put together a cyber incidents response plan. This is what, some of the key factors are when putting that together. Here's actually a good friend of mine and colleague, Jeremy Duncan, Country Financial. He's one of my preferred partners that I work with when it comes to these types of plans. But strong encouragement for all of you to review your policies when it comes to cyber liability insurance. Here's an idea of PCI compliance and some of the standards that they put together when it comes to those digital payments. And as I start to kind of digress and wrap up a little bit, I will just, simply say, here are some of the major takeaways. Okay. And I may actually even put this in the chat for some of those that maybe want to get their hands on it. Please note that this is being recorded. It will be on the Washington Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel as well if you want to review it again. But I might put in the chat too because this is super important. But just mitigate the risk by relying on cybersecurity services that are provided by a managed IT department because a lot of the time we're asking ourselves, do we really need 24/7 support? And the answer is yeah. I mean, if 80, 90% of the time we jumped out of the plane and the chute didn't open, we might want to, reevaluate some things before jumping out. And so I would just say, tying into a good MSP, managed IT provider like myself, or many of you on this call, essential in this day and age. Invest in a good cyber liability insurance policy to cover ransomware response costs because, as I mentioned earlier, these spoof emails are starting to increase day by day. Regularly back up all the critical data into an isolated system so that way we can, restore if we need to. Have a written information security plan. Again, that WISP, WISP, WISP. I can't say it enough. Educate and test yourself on cyber risks, that awareness training again, not just to adhere to some of the compliance regulations, because yeah, that looks good on paper, especially in the event of a breach, but it's just nice to prevent things because we have the awareness to know what to look for, right? And then finally, document and remain compliant with all terms and requirements of your cyber liability insurance policy. And the reason I say that, not to be redundant, is sometimes we know what to do, but I think we're all guilty sometimes of maybe not acting on that sometimes. And so strong encouragement to, document and remain compliant by taking the proper action steps. And here is really my last slide because I get these questions asked a lot. And so I'm just going to kind of fly through these a little bit before I give it up to Abe here. Starting with when should I consult with a professional? an MSP, a managed IT provider. And I will just say again, referring back to that slide earlier, 80 to 90% of the time, there's a breach when it's an unmanaged device. So having a managed IT provider to help manage these devices is why I believe that is absolutely essential today. And so we just, again, got to ask ourselves if we jumped out of a plane and 80 to 90% of the time the chute didn't open, what would we do? Right. And so, I would just say that in some cases, maybe we've already gotten started with our IT infrastructure. And the good news is it's never too late to consult with a professional. If we maybe gotten started already, I would just say right away. What if I already have an IT guy? And that's actually my favorite type of scenario because we actually have different niches that we stay within. And so internal IT usually has all the information needed to achieve the desired result. So I can tell you from personal experience, we actually act as a co-managed IT provider to help support the inner IT professional. And oftentimes they're just overwhelmed anyway. And so they just need support. So bringing a support team of 400, we become best friends. And so if you have an internal IT person, there's a good chance they're overwhelmed and they could probably use the help. How often should I review these things? Again, huge advocate of quarterly. A lot can happen in one quarter, and so it's important to keep our eyes on the prize. We have all our efforts to build and just would hate to see all that torn down by one breach. And so it's nice to try to find areas to cut costs along the way too. And so I'm just a huge fan of IT budgeting along that process. But again, I would say quarterly or at the very least annually. What does that process look like? I'm a huge fan of coffee or lunch or happy hour, oftentimes on me. One conversation about the internal infrastructure of a business. And me personally, I have an idea of the tech that's needed because as much as I nerd out on tech, I actually started in operations, right? And so, with that being said, that process does not have to be a grueling process. It can very easily be a coffee, lunch, or happy hour, just to talk turkey like we might in a one-to-one. What if it's not in the budget? That's a fun one. Well, that's the cool part about having the right managed IT provider. I can tell you that one of the things that our clients love about us is we work with the budget. We lay out an annual IT budget on the front end, going back to that all the things slide, and oftentimes there's numbers attached to it, allowing us to comfortably move forward with the tech based on the budget. Not always should we do everything at once. Oftentimes we can't do everything at once because we've kind of gotten started in the process and we just don't have the money. But those really should become our target revenue goals after that quarterly business review. Because again, it's compliance regulations mandating these things, so they're very much a necessity. But just how we go about procuring the technology is the question. And I just think that, annual IT budgets are essential to formulate a budget if it's not in the budget. And then my personal favorite, do I really need 24/7 cybersecurity? And I will just revert back to that slide where I mentioned one of our favorite shoe companies earlier. I don't like talking bad about Nike. I love Nike. I got so many J's, it's ridiculous. But the reality of it is you can have all the proper protection and still find yourself in a precarious situation. So, do we really need 24/7 cyber security? I just think it depends on the level of risk that we're willing to take. And I will tell you, with this 60-hour work weeks I put in, I'm just not willing to risk that, over just a few dollars. And so I will say that that's pretty much it for me, guys. Again, I put my contact information in the chat for anyone that wants to deep dive a little bit and ask more questions. I know we're going to have Abraham Noya up here soon, but if you have specific questions, please feel free to reach out for a free consultation. And I tell you what I'm going to do, if you don't mind too, Miss Tampson, is I am actually going to set up my brother here. He's a good friend, a colleague, and word has it he has the voice of an angel, Mr. Abraham Noya with Team Nebula, where your data is your advantage. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing, or maybe you can just kind of grab it from me, bud.
Yeah, of course. Well, first off, AJ, my background is in managed IT, and the risk is so real. And most people don't even know until they're hit. So this really, really hits close to home. So thank you so much for sharing that. And Dara, thank you so much for having me on this webinar. I am excited to be here. It's what an honor, and I hope I'm able to provide some value for everybody on this call. And can we real fast? So I just want everybody to know this. We last minute asked Tamsin to jump in and do a presentation for the AIC. And literally, within a couple nights, she prepared a presentation. She put it together for the AIC. Can we just give her a hand real fast,
I'm
guys?
gonna give it a live one, not even the virtual. I'm gonna give it a live hand. She's amazing. Thank you, Tamsin.
All right. Very cool. Okay, so over the next 20 minutes, I am actually going to make one case, and it is this. So, right now, you, the small business owner that's on this call, in 2026, we're actually sitting at the biggest competitive advantage over enterprise that has ever existed in business history. And I'm not talking about the last decade. I'm not talking about, the last 100 years. I am talking about the whole story. And by the time we're done, I want everyone to be able to see it clearly enough that you can't unsee this. So first, let me show you why I'm able to make a claim that big. So again, my name is Abraham Noya. I am COO and co-founder at Team Nebula. Just some quick numbers with what my company has done. So I'm not blowing smoke. My team and I have contributed to over $50 million in client revenue from more than over 400 production AI systems that are running today. We've done everything from RAG pipelines to autonomous agents to workflow automation to custom integrations, all the way to the chatbot that you see on the Washington County Chambers of Commerce website. So we've done a lot of it, and we started with small business and have since then moved to government projects and enterprise. So I'm not coming from theory. I kind of do this for a living. So when I tell you what's working for small business in the age of AI, I'm telling you from what I've shipped and my experience and the experiences of the clients that I've had. So let's talk about where you are right now. So if you are on this call, you sit on any one of these three camps. And I want everybody to,
Dave,
to think about this. Oh,
I am
can
so
you hear me?
sorry. Did you grab the screen share from me to be able to
I
share?
did. Is it sharing?
Yeah,
I can see it.
perfect. Okay.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. Okay, cool. So if I want everybody to think about this for a second. We've had ChatGPT, which has become mainstream for only 3.5 years. Like that's nuts to me, guys, because that's how long ChatGPT has been mainstream, and my kids are using it to help with their homework. It's way more helpful than I am because I don't understand the math that they're doing. And our accountant is using it to write emails. It's very clear my accountant is using it to write emails because uh, yeah. And some of your competitors, right now, some of them are doing things that you don't even know about yet. So the question is no longer, is AI real? The question is, which camp do you sit on? And everyone on this call today belongs to one of these three camps. So we have camp one, which honestly, I truly do respect this one because you've decided this is hype. Maybe you've, survived the dot-com bubble, you've survived the 2009 crash, and you've kind of seen it all. And you're saying, hey, you know what? This is hype. I've seen this before, done that. I'm a business. I've got a business to run. I'm just gonna wait it out. And then I guess for camp two, this is probably going to be, maybe half to two-thirds of you. This is the experimenting. So you've always got ChatGPT open. Your wife, husband thinks you are actually married to that ChatGPT. You get all of your advice from ChatGPT. Your office manager is using Copilot to clean up emails. And maybe somebody made a logo with an application like Midjourney for a company picnic, but it hasn't really impacted your P&L. Okay. And then there's camp three. So this is compounding, and this is where AI isn't a tab anymore. It's fundamentally wired into how the business runs. Quotes are going out faster, follow-ups are happening without anyone remembering to actually send them. And what's really special about this camp is it's your best salesperson's instincts that are encoded into a system that runs while everyone's asleep. So the gap between camp two and camp three is not about smarts or budgets. It's really about one decision. And I'm going to spend the rest of this talk on that decision. Okay, so 95%. 95% of enterprise AI pilots, and I'm talking the Fortune 500 companies, the banks, the hospitals, hospital systems, companies with literally $2 billion IT budgets never make it out of the pilot phase. And in the industry, we actually have a name for it now. We call it pilot purgatory. And I don't know if any of you guys work in a big industry or not, but I'm sure you guys have already seen a lot of different experiments with AI trying to implement it, and it's may or may not be fully utilized. But we call this pilot purgatory. And I want you to sit with this because the stories that we've been told is that these big companies are spending billions and billions and billions of dollars and they're racing ahead of small businesses, and small businesses are getting left behind. But I just want to paint the picture that that story is so wrong. The actual story is that the giants are paralyzed. They have legacy systems from 1998, talking legacy systems from 2007. Tamsin, you're a developer. I know you can attest to this. That need 18 months. They have a team that needs 18 months to even approve a chatbot. They have data sitting in 43 different databases that just don't talk to each other. And while they're stuck in committee, you, the 8-person company, you, the 1-person company, the 20-person company, can literally ship something real in a weekend. So let me show you the numbers behind this. So I have 3 numbers here. 63% of enterprises don't have data that's ready for AI. This is coming from Gartner, tail end of 2025. So translation is pretty much most big companies, when they go to actually plug AI into their business, they discover that their data is a mess. It's duplicated, it's inconsistent, it's locked in systems that just were never designed to share. And then number 2 is it's taking enterprises 26 to 32 months to even roll out an enterprise system and an enterprise integration. And you could have a baby and put that baby in daycare with the amount of time that that's going to take. So these are how these big organizations are moving right now. And then the last number is 6% are actually figuring out how to win with it. So when I tell you that you guys are not behind, and I can't speak for everybody, but just in general, you are not behind. The giants are stuck in mud, and you're standing in dry ground right now. Okay, so what separates the 6% from everyone else? And here is the answer. I want everybody, if you're capable, if you take anything from this call today, take a picture of this, write it down, because this is going to be the most important thing today. Your data is your advantage. It's not the model. It's not the tool. I have plenty of tools to sell you, but today this is not what this call is about. This is an IT, this is an AI infrastructure call. It's not which version of ChatGPT you're paying for. It is your data. And when I'm talking about the data, this is the notes in your CRM. This is the history in your email. This is, the PDFs in that shared drive. This is the way your best technician explains a job to a customer. It's that stuff that makes your business unique to your business. And that's the asset, right? The model is commodity. Anybody has access to ChatGPT now. Anybody has access to Copilot now. Nobody else has your data. And here's what nobody is also telling small business owners right now. You have a huge structural advantage over large companies. So on the left, this is a real Fortune 500 environment. I'm not going to go through all of this, but we can see, 43 disconnected systems. You've got the change advisory board. Long story short, it takes a lot of decisions to make a decision in a big company. Now, look at it on your side, coming from a small business. You have I hope you have a CRM. If you don't, go talk to my boy AJ. He's going to hook you all up because you definitely want to be running with the CRM. But you have one CRM, you have one inbox, maybe you have a few inboxes with a few employees, a few shared inboxes, and you have one owner, which is, probably you, who can actually walk into the room and say, hey, you know what? We're doing this and we're starting Monday. You don't have the data debt that a lot of these enterprise companies have to be able to move. You have a clean slate, and in the age of AI, that is worth so much more than the biggest IT budget. So what does it actually look like to use that clean slate? So I just want to set the framing that AI ready data at the small business level, it's not a database project. It's really 3 things, right? So One is the integration and getting connected. The first thing you want to figure out is your CRM, your email, your calendar, your shared docs, whether you use SharePoint, whether you use Slack, whether you use, Teams behind a SharePoint, whatever you use, you want to be able to centralize all of that. They need to be able to see each other. If your customer's phone number is in HubSpot and the notes from yesterday's call are trapped in someone's Gmail, and the proposal is in, a Google Doc that nobody else can find, AI cannot help you. The plumbing has to exist. And the second one is hygiene. So we want clean data before we even think about implementing AI. So look at your CRM tonight. And I know this is probably obvious, but you'll find one record in there. And then you'll find three other records of the same person. One person has a different spelling of the name. Maybe it's an extra email in there. So consolidate your CRM, consolidate your data. And then so consolidating your data is so important. I want to preface this. It is so important because AI is so good at making a confidently wrong answer. And I think we've all seen that somewhere where we're like, okay, I know this is crazy. I popped it into ChatGPT and it just gave the most confidently wrong answer. And it will be more than happy to do that with your data. So make sure you're going out and organizing that. Cool. And then number three is captured. So this is the stuff that's really important. This is the stuff that's in your head. This is the way you decide whether to discount a quote. The reason you always follow up on, day 3 versus day 5. This is your best employee's gut. So what I want you guys to do is write it down. Once you've done that, this becomes the asset and this is your moat. So once you've done all three of these things, something starts to happen that's really, really, really hard to undo. And this is what Camp 3 that I was talking about actually looks like. It's not magic. It's this crazy loop. So you capture what happens. Every email, every quote, every support ticket, every job, the system is actually learning from it, what worked, what didn't, what your customers actually respond to. And then it acts. It drafts the next email in your voice. It flags the customer who's about to churn. It, writes the follow-up before you even remember you needed to send one. And then the action becomes new data, right? Which makes the next action better. And that's that compounding effect that I was talking about. And that's why Camp 3 pulls away from Camp 2. And it's not in a straight line that looks like this. It's really that exponential. Like you'll see month 1 when you integrate a system like this, or when you're building a system like this, month 1 starts like this. And then month 12, you're just skyrocket. So it's not even a fair fight anymore. Cool. So that compounding effect, it has a name. And when you do it right, we actually call it hyper personalization. All right, so I'm going to define hyper personalization. So hyper personalization is this. It's every single customer interaction, every customer who touches your business feels like the entire business was literally built for them. And it's not because you hired 1,000 people. It's because every interaction, the email, the quote, the support reply, the product recommendation, the way you actually greet them by name when they walked in, all of this is shaped by everything you've ever known about the customer. So their order history, the last conversation, the way they prefer to be, talked to. This is something that Fortune 500 has been promising for the last decade, and they've been unable to deliver it. And it's because they've got records that's fragmented across, 43 different systems, which we've already talked about, and their legal team won't let the marketing team touch it. Now I want you guys to think about your business. You already know, the top 5, 10, 50 customers, and you know them by name, right? And you know who pays you on time and who doesn't. You know who referred you, and that's not a deficit. This is the playing field where small businesses eats the giants for lunch because that data already exists, whether it's in your head, whether it's, on pen and paper, whether it's in a database, you just need to put it all together and wire it up. So here's what that actually looks like in practice. And these are what I like to call the lowest hanging fruit, or three things you can actually ship and like actually ship in the next couple of weeks. So sales emails. Right now, if you're like most businesses, your outreach is a template with the customer's first name dropped in it, right? And you've got those variables like, hi, variable. I noticed industry variable. This is what we're seeing a lot of right now. But what if you were able to take the last 2 years of one deal email history, let an AI write the next outreach in your actual voice based on your personal branding? So it takes everything on LinkedIn, it takes everything on Instagram, your website, your generated brand voice document that was generated from the last 500 emails you sent out, referencing what that prospect specifically told you, and replies are going to jump 10x. So one of our clients, Rivis, saw a 50% jump in booked calls in 90 days from this exact play. And then number two is support. So you have a person, maybe it's you. I hope it's not you because I know how that is, and it's hard wearing many, many, many hats, but you're usually answering the same 20 questions every week, right? An AI trained on all of your past tickets, your knowledge base, it handles tier one in your voice, your tone, your warmth. It will even know your jokes and escalates the hard ones. And then number three, which is my personal favorite, this is quoting. So it used to take me hours to quote, to even draft a proposal. Imagine a proposal being sent while you're on the phone with your customer before they've even had a chance to connect with their competitor. Like, and none of this is, 2 years out, and none of these even require a multi-million-dollar platform or an AI architect. Like, I'm talking, you guys can ideate with GPT, with Claude, with Copilot, and you guys can build these systems in a week or less. So, how do you actually build systems like this? There's three layers, and I'm going to keep this tool agnostic on purpose because I'm not selling anyone tools or software. But what we've learned being in the AI space is that the specific tools will change every 6 months, especially with the hype. There's going to be a new tool that comes out that just completely eliminates the last tool. So the era of tool chasing is starting to kind of die out. So layer one is capture. And this is the single source of truth, okay? This is the place where the stuff in your head and the stuff in your business lives in one spot. And this could be, your knowledge base. If you're AI native, knowledge base like Notion could be cool, but I just threw a tool out. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, guys. um, but you get the idea, SharePoint, whatever it is, structure that all in one place. Everything that's head knowledge for your business, write it out, document it. Any SOWs, any process paperwork, write that all down, and make sure you know how that flows. Okay. And then layer two is connect. So this is the plumbing. This is the automation layer that moves data between your apps without anyone having to like manually copy and paste, without Jill from accounting having to, duplicate 20 spreadsheets. Like, this is the connect layer. And then layer three, this is where the AI does the work. The frontier models, I'll be honest, like I said, Claude is my daily driver, and I build in Claude code every day, but I'll dip into Codex. I'll dip into the Google ecosystem pretty often as well. So use whatever fits how your brain works. They're all really good at this point. And the model you pick matters way less than the data you feed it. So capture, connect, and act. If you're a small business, you can literally do this for under $200 a month to start. But before you do spend a dollar, I want you guys to understand this. Right now, you don't need an AI strategy. And I know this sounds crazy because every consultant in a 4-hour radius wants to sell you one. I've done this for 4 years, so I can tell you that every AI enthusiast will jump at the opportunity to get on a call with any one of you guys here. But you don't need an AI strategy. Pick one workflow. You need one audited workflow. Pick the most painful, most repetitive, most expensive thing in your week. When I'm starting a business, that's always outreach. I always like to automate outreach first. As I grow the business, that's always the follow-ups, the feedback loops. These are the things that I like to automate when I'm starting out. But for your business, I don't know what that's going to look like. If you're a service business, if you're a restaurant, but pick one thing that is the most painful thing and start with that workflow. Here's exactly how you're going to do this, okay? So there's 4 steps and a prompt you can steal. I am actually going to teach you guys how to fish today. So you're doing the work with your LLM of choice, and I'm not out here, helping you guys. So step 1, pick the task that you'd pay $500 to never, ever do again. Everybody's got one. Invoicing, onboarding, new client, weekly report, nobody reads. And then step 2, time it. Figure out exactly how much time this is costing you. Every time someone does this task, write it down, how long it is, and I promise you, you will be horrified. But make sure it's real numbers and you're not just kind of vibing it out. And then step 3, map it. You want to open a document. There are lots of good applications for this, but open a document and list every step of the process, every input, every decision, every output. My company right now is working with a state auditor, and we spent an entire 2-hour session literally in the auditor's shoes as we were planning the build. And we had them tell us, okay, you walk into the door, tell us your work. Like, what's the first thing you do? Like, when you're mapping out AI process, you want to map it end to end, and you want to be able to articulate it. You don't want AI to be able to define what right looks like. Define what right looks like and allow AI to figure everything else in the middle. Cool. And then step 4, ask one question. Where does the data for this workflow live? And could AI do steps 2, 3, or 4? So, losing my slides. Okay, so here's the prompt. I had opened, your LLM of choice. Like I said, this is tool agnostic. Everybody likes what they like now. Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, and pop this prompt in, take a photo of it, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Okay, I am going to move to the next slide. Is that okay? Cool. All right. And then for those of you who are actually considering hiring an AI partner, this might be the most expensive sentence you hear all day because it's going to save some of you a lot of money before you sign any AI vendor contract. So make sure you ask these 4 questions. 1, where does my data live? And who owns it? If they can't answer this in 1 sentence, that is a clear sign that you need to walk away. And then 2, can I export everything tomorrow? So we have an API is definitely not a yes. The answer should be a definitive, yes, there's an export button and here's how to do it, or they can just hand deliver you whatever it is that they've built. And then 3, are you wrapping a frontier model, which is completely okay. I want to make it clear that it costs billions of dollars to build an LLM. But if they're wrapping it without the proper training, and that's observability, that's a continuous feedback loop, you're paying a markup for something that you could have honestly done yourself if you ideate with GPT. And then 4, what happens when you go out of business in 18 months? Because I will tell you this, for as long as I've been in this industry, I have seen AI agencies come and go and come and go. And I am thankful that I have survived and learned a lot from that survival. But there are a lot of people that are going to be coming and going with AI agencies, and you don't want to be tied to that. So make sure they have make sure you're purchasing it and you're not renting it as a hostage situation is kind of my point. Cool. And then one last thing, and the reason any of this matters, here's the reality. Okay, so in 2 years, AI will be a commodity. It'll actually be in everything, whether we like it or not. And by the way, we've got some really, really cool discussions. I'm going to pivot to AIC for a second. If you are interested at all in like any of the environmental discussions or the AI impact, we've got some really, really cool conversations going on right now. So I highly, highly encourage you guys to check out the link. But AI will be in almost everything, and all of your competitors will have access to the exact same models you do. So that means AI is no longer the moat. So what is? It's the clean, connected, captured data that you built this year. The way your business runs, write it down, wire it up. That way, the next, Claude 12.5 comes out. You guys are ready. Gemini 6.5, you guys are ready to get that plugged in. All right, so back to where I started. 3.5 years in, This is where we're at, ignoring, experimenting, and compounding. This is not a one-time decision. It's a decision you make every quarter. You don't audit a workflow. Every month, you don't write it down. Every month, you're not writing down what's in your head. Every week, you keep doing the 4-hour task by hand. Compounding doesn't start when you buy the right software. It starts the first time you pick one thing and say, this is the one workflow I'm going to fix. And that can be today, that can be Monday. And I really, really, really hope it's this quarter. Um, my name is Abraham. We build the data layer. Nebulas, by the way, are where stars are born. And that's the North Star metaphor my partner Sean and Ian keeps in mind for every single client we work with. So the workflow audit I just walked you through is yours. Do whatever you want with it. If you want a second set of eyes, you know where to find me. Small business is a huge passion for me. Unless you guys are a large company, I won't even charge you.
Appreciate
Yeah.
all of you coming in and checking out those contact information there, and I'll let Jen finish wrapping up.
Right. Hi, everybody. Again, thank you to our speakers. And next month is June 17th, and we'll be joined by Frida Vilma with PGE and ETO Small Business Programs. Stay tuned to Chamber channels for more information on that.
Perfect. Thanks for allowing us to share, everybody.
All right. Have a great day.